As Gannon just explained, even if we don't see Hurricane Irma directly, still likely to bring some significant wind, rains from the outer reaches of the bands. That's why it's important. We keep stressing it. Just go ahead and get ready while the weather around here is nice, which, as Gannon just showed, it's going to be. So here to talk to us about that is Stephen Howell, the EMS Education Coordinator at New Hanover Regional Medical Center. I found it very interesting when Gannon had the models going, how fixed and focused you were watching that. How much do you guys actually pay attention to this kind of stuff as it does get closer, as far as radar and maps, local forecast, national forecast?
So we pay a lot of attention to it because it helps determine our staffing patterns and what we're going to do in the event that it does happen. So our crews are watching it. They're waiting just as much as everybody else is in the community to see exactly what path it's going to take, and then the hospital's continuing to monitor it as well, where they can determine what's best for their staff and for the community. So
we've been talking about preparedness most of the morning, and along the way, most of it for us has been water, batteries, things like that. When you talk about the medical side, I think all that we have said is, make sure you have your medication, maybe in a Ziploc bag. What do people need to know on the medical spectrum of things when, severe weather or any kind of impact comes our way?
So the most important part is any medications you have prescription or over the counter that you use on a regular basis, you want to make sure you have a good supply of that right now. If an event happens, it may be days or weeks before you can get back out and get that stuff. We also want people to think about what to do if the power goes out. If you have patients who have oxygen or are on ventilators or on insulin and have to keep it chilled, they need to have some way in order to maintain that. So home generators or a backup plan, maybe even going to see family that's not going to be impacted by the storm if they have really bad medical conditions, all that stuff plays into account.
For people that don't heed these warnings, and I never even thought about the electrical part of keeping things cool. My father's diabetic, so I know his insulin has to stay refrigerated. Are a lot of the calls that you get called out to, I don't want to call them minor, but can they be things like that? Well, I didn't have my medicine refrigerated, I didn't have my medicine. Is it more of that than it is actual injuries?
Yeah, for the most part, we don't see a lot of injuries, thankfully. Most of the community really pays attention to what emergency management says and stays home and stays out of the weather. So a lot of stuff we go out to are just medical emergencies, lack of planning ahead of time. I don't have oxygen, I didn't get enough oxygen tanks delivered, and I was on home O2, or something else happens where they didn't think about the power, or they didn't get enough medicines, and so they have to go to the hospital to be treated.
And one thing people at home do need to pay attention to is not only take care of yourself, but if you don't, at some point, you can't even get to them because it will be deemed too unsafe for you to be out in the storm.
Yeah, that's correct. We always want to take care of the community as much as we can, but we also have to take our staff's safety into account. So we monitor the wind conditions, and once wind speeds hit 40 miles per hour sustained, we won't go across any of the high-rise bridges. Once it hits 50 miles per hour sustained, our chief will look at it and see if it's safe or not, and then he'll shut down operations if he needs to until the wind speeds slow down. That way we're still able to respond when the wind is died down, but we keep our staff safe.
So again, that makes it a very important part, as Stephen is saying, to make sure you're taking things into consideration on your end, because if it does get bad, and we're seeing these winds 185 miles an hour sustained now, there's a point where you won't be there to lend the helping hand that people at home are going to need. Again, as Gannon keeps saying, it's time to take precautions now while the weather's good. Heed the warnings. I mean, you're here for medical professionals right here. Heed the warnings. Do what you need to do to be safe. Stephen, we always appreciate the time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.